have a look.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tokimaru and I'm here to have a look at Chronoquartz. This is a puzzle game by a solo indie dev named Infinite Stairs, and from what I can tell, this is their second game, right after a game called Guns and Dragons, which is a co-op top-down roguelite shooter. Now, this game is a time loop game. It is a time loop game where you have exactly 10 moves each loop before the timeline restarts. What are moves? Well, we'll get into that when I get into the game. Let's start by talking about, well, I was gonna say hop into the options menu, but I want to talk about this main menu for a second. Something that annoys me that you may have noticed is, well, in the settings, I guess I'll jump in here and show you. In the settings, we don't have any resolution options. It's a very simplistic options menu. I'll discuss it in a little bit. But there aren't any resolution options. So when you're playing this game and it doesn't match the resolution of your screen, it just has these big black bars on the side of the screen, which annoys the heck out of me. And you can't change it. Awful. So options menu, it's basically just volume sliders, a brightness slider. That's the only graphical option whatsoever. And then language and a few minor things. We have controller vibration and rewind animation. I don't know what this is. I haven't tested it. I haven't turned this on or off or anything. I guess it just changes what the animation is when you go back in time from the time loop. But this is very extremely bare bones options menu. For the volume, we have sound effects and music. I would prefer if they were also an overall slider, but at the bare minimum, it is nice that there is one slider for each of them and a brightness slider. I've been having a problem with the actual brightness slider of this game. It feels like something about it is broken because sometimes you enter into the game and maybe you exit out and the brightness is different than what you set it at. And then once you change it, it goes to whatever the proper brightness is. So you may have noticed when I first moved this slider, even though I moved it down, it became brighter. That's what I'm talking about. There are also some other brightness. There are also some other brightness problems that I'll get into when we actually get into the game. But yeah, they're very bare bones menu. I know it's a 2D game, but there are a few more things that you should definitely have. You should have resolution options because, like I said, these black bars on the side of the screen are very annoying. Should probably have full screen on and off. I can't imagine you need much else. There are a few post-processing effects in this game that can be a little bit of a problem to look at, but I suppose that's where this brightness slider comes in, because there's a little bit of light. There's a little bit of lighting. So this is a pixel art based game, but there are a few post-processing lighting effects that they make use of, and sometimes they can be hard to look at. I know there's one part where there's a big flashing light on the screen, so I would suggest maybe one or two options to sort of turn that down just purely for accessibility purposes. Controls, we have controller and keyboard. So when you like use one or the other, it changes what's on the screen. And that kind of annoys me. I feel like they should just present both of them so that you know. And also we need rebindable keys. You really should have rebindable keys. There's no reason not to have them. Very simple control scheme. This is a top-down game where you're basically just picking things up and putting them down. There's not much to say here. We have credits, achievements. There's an in-game achievement system. If you end up, I don't think this is on console. I only saw it on Steam, but if it were to be ported on console, it would have its own in-game achievements. And then we have, obviously, new game and play game. I'm going to enter into this game. I have beaten this once, and I played it for about 3-ish, a little over 3 hours. I've beaten this game. So I restarted this. You may notice it says I'm on loop 2. I don't think I should be on loop 2. This should be on loop 1. But it saves every couple of seconds just to make sure. So this is the game. You play as a little guy who is a thief who was trying to steal the thing called the Chronoquartz, and so you've been put in jail. Now you're trapped in a time loop and must find a way to escape. Here, if we open up the map, it's very traditional adventure game-esque. It reminds me a lot of Zelda, just overall. It reminds me a lot of Zelda, and I think it uses a couple of tropes of the game. So if we enter into here, you may notice the number at the top of the screen has gone up by 1. That's because that's our move counter. Like I said, you have 10 moves in the game. Every time you move into a room, that counts as 1 move. And there are a few other things that also affect your moves, but for the most part, your move counter is only going to go up when you move in and out of a room. We also have a button that allows us to move things. Also, we have a run button. It kind of annoyed me when I was playing the first time because I was playing it with keyboard initially, and then I realized it was more comfortable with controller because I can't rebind the keys. I do enjoy the control scheme, so I do recommend that if you play the game, you play with the controller. So we have left trigger for run and then right trigger to grab things. You may notice our guy has a little bit of a rope. And there's also, speaking of, there's like one thing that bothers me about this game. I know this is getting a little bit anal, but I'm a huge fan of pixel art. Overall, I think the pixel art in this game is competent. It's competent. I really like I just want to go back to the menu for a sec. I really adore the menu art in this game. This art style is beautiful. The pixel art, you know, it works. It works. It's serviceable. I don't think it's bad by any means. One small problem I have with it is that it has mixels. One of my least favorite things to happen with pixel art. It's when you have multiple different art assets that are drawn at different resolutions. So you may notice the pixels that make up my character that I'm playing as are bigger than the pixels that make up other objects in the room. I know it's a little bit anal because that's surprisingly common with pixel art games. It's just something that annoys me personally. You may not have a problem with it, but now that I've mentioned it, you might not be able to unnotice it. But yeah, our base controls are run and grab things, and we can also pick up items, and that's basically it. There are only certain specific items that you end up having to pick up. You can't just pick up any item. It's mainly a puzzle game. It's not an adventure game, despite the Zelda-esque presentation. So we'll go into our second room for room 2. We notice a guy here. If we go up to him, he's going to try and kill us. We die, that resets the loop. And now we are on loop number 4. So that is, honestly, that's the very, very basic structure of the game, is you are going through this castle, you're discovering new rooms. I appreciate that it tells you specifically when there is a room that you can go to from the room you're in. So you see, I'm in this room where there are walls on either side of the room. I can't go left and I can't go right. But when we go into the next room, it tells me that there are rooms on the top and the left and the right. I do appreciate that. It's a really nice, sort of way of leading you along. So here is a door with a code on it, and we don't know what the code is. But here's a neat little quality of life thing. If we type in a code, if we just go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we reset the loop. So for the most part, whenever you reset a loop, everything resets with a few minor exceptions. One of them being that if you type a code into a thing, it stays there on the next loop. This is something that ends up being a problem with a couple time loop games, is that once you figure out the solution to a puzzle during one loop, it might reset during the next loop. But this game sort of circumvents this by giving you, it just gives you the code if you already figured it out, or just if you've already typed in a code. So it's a really nice small quality of life thing. So yeah, this is the structure of the game. We're just going around, we're discovering things, we're reading these notes which give us hints. We're eventually going to find more things, and if we go here, there's a big guy here. I can go down here, and I think they, for the most part, they do a really good job at designing the map in a way that sort of confines you to a certain space. So you notice they designed this part of the map in a specific way where it's impossible to get much farther than maybe 1 or 2 rooms during your first couple of goes around. So if I go move 1, move 2, I have to wait for this guy to move, otherwise he tries to kill me. You go 3, 4, we're just going to beeline for this area so I can show you how far you can get. And these couple of rooms are mostly empty. So there is no real reason to, they don't give you rooms that are useless for the most part. If the room is useless, it's there for another reason, such as using up your turns. But I think they do a really good job just generally designing the map and trying to keep you locked in a certain number of rooms. This room we can get to, and ooh, what's that? One of those numbers is highlighted. Could that be a hint? Maybe. And this is as far as we can get. We can't go any further. But there are ways for you to circumvent the different amount of lengths it takes you to get through rooms which you eventually discover. I don't know how much I want to progress into this game. Whoops. I don't know how much I want to progress into this game because I don't want to spoil some of the puzzles, because I think some of the puzzles are really good. Later on, there are a couple puzzles that end up being a little esoteric. They're not difficult puzzles per se, but sometimes figuring out what the game wants you to do in a specific circumstance, or like what the game is asking for, or if there is a puzzle, it can be a little difficult to try and figure out what it might be wanting. Like, actually doing the puzzles, once you know the bounds of the puzzles, they're not too bad. I actually think most of the puzzles in this game are pretty easy, but still thought-provoking. And I ran into a few puzzles where it ended up taking me about half an hour to get through. And there were only like 2 or 3 of those that felt that way. But for the most part, I think the puzzles are a little bit on the easy side, but still pretty satisfying of a difficulty. Now, one thing they do have for this is they have this hint system. You can unlock a new hint every 60 seconds, that's it. So wherever you are in the game, there's, for the most part, you can only access maybe 1 or 2 different puzzles at a time. And otherwise, puzzles are sort of locked. They're sort of gate-kept by previous puzzles. So you can't like accidentally move too far from the next couple of puzzles that you're required to solve and end up getting lost. There are a few times I ended up having that. For example, I guess I don't want to show you this, but there's something that they introduce in a little bit in this area. There are like 4 or 5 areas in this game. There's something that they introduce in this area that sort of changes the way you perceive the map. And what ended up happening is I basically accidentally discovered something that they intended me to discover later, because the thing that they introduced sort of made me feel like it was optimal to play the game a certain way. And this isn't gonna make any sense unless you've already played the game, but there is something in this room that they show you, and it kind of messed with the flow of the game a little bit because I accidentally found it early. There aren't too many like that though. I think for the most part, they do a good job keeping you in the room. But yeah, like I said, so they have the hint system. They keep track of how many hints you've used. So if you see at the top of the screen, it says help 2. I've used the hint button 2 times in this one. And there is an achievement for beating the game without using any hints. And I will say, it's a lot easier to get that one than it appears. But I think some of the hints, I mean, this is a problem I've had with a few puzzle games that use a hint system like this, where you get 3 hints, usually what ends up happening is hint A is pretty obvious. Like, if you're stuck with a puzzle for the most part, I think that the first hint is usually going to be something you've already figured out. You already know what the puzzle is. You just can't figure out what they're asking you to do. And then hint B is usually not that much more helpful. Hint C is usually the actual hint that you're looking for. And it takes 3 minutes because they lock you out of asking for a hint every 60 seconds. So you have to wait a whole 3 minutes to actually get the one single hint that you want, which is a little bit annoying because if you're going through a puzzle game and you're stuck in a place, you've probably been stuck there for like 10, 20 minutes maybe trying to figure out what you're even supposed to do. Maybe not what the answer is, but what you're even supposed to do. And I think that forcing you, like locking you out of the hint for a long period of time like that is really annoying. But outside of a few very specific puzzles, I don't think it's too much of a problem for the most part. I want to show you a little bit of the story if I can get to it. There's also a kill yourself button. Kill yourself now so that you can instantly restart a loop. Let me try and get to sort of a story beat. I don't know if I can. Whoops. I don't think I can. But there are a few cutscenes in this game. There are a few cutscenes in this game, specifically in this area of the map. When I explored in other areas of the map, there weren't really any cutscenes. It's mostly an open-ish, open-presented adventure world. And all the story is taking place in this little section of the map. It's a pretty simple story, but I do think it gets really interesting near the end, and that's about it. For the most part, you're not really going to be interacting with a whole lot of NPCs outside of sort of very basic dialogue that are telling you hints to puzzles and things, or giving you lore about an area. But the ending of the game has a couple of cutscenes that are really, I don't know if I would say cool. I think it serves the narrative well for what it's trying to be, despite being very bare bones for the most part. It's a pretty short game. Like I said, I beat it in a little bit over 3 hours, and that's with a couple of puzzles where I ended up getting stuck for about 30 minutes because I also really don't like using the help button. So that's mostly on me. I don't like using hint buttons. I like trying to figure it out myself, even if I'm torturing myself for 30 minutes. But yeah, it's a really, really clever puzzle game. I do think they make amazing use out of the 10-turn rule, and they do a lot of really interesting twists on it and the overall time travel aspect. So I do think it's probably worth your time. This has been Chronoquartz. It is available on Steam for, I've already forgotten. Available on Steam for, currently it's on sale for $7.49 or your regional equivalent. Thank you very much for watching. My name has been Tokimaru, and I will see you all next time.